All right, friends, thank you so much for being on. My name's Tommy Nixon. I get to be the CEO of UYWI Urban Youth Workers Institute, and we're really glad that you're jumping on today. We have a special guest, Bobby Lopez. He helped us kick off our Zoom calls, and would you believe it, this is number 18. So we have done 18 Zoom calls throughout the pandemic, and so man, we've been, you know what, pray for our team, give it up to God for empowering our team. My team has been grinding to make sure that you guys have what you need to keep on going. And so good job, team. Thank you guys. And thank you to all our leaders and some of you who are on the call who have been our trainers and part of our community. And thank you guys, mostly those of you joining for just continuing to push forward. Thank you for loving these students so much that you're looking for training, that you'd spend time after work to get trained, that you're looking for answers, and you're looking for answers because you love your youth and because you believe in the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so mostly we just want to say thank you to you guys. Thank you for everything you do in the kingdom. Thank you for who you are. Thank you that we get to call you a friend and be a part of a community with you. Today, what we're going to be talking about is evangelism, sharing the gospel in this digital age. And so I want to set up the conversation for us, if I can. Before that, I'm supposed to let you know the Zoom rules. We're going to lock the meeting shortly. You can always send questions through the chat, and we want to make sure that you do that. Hit that chat button. Do that. You guys if you're jumping on and you haven't let us know where you're coming from, put that on there. And we would love to engage with you in the next hour or so. So sharing the gospel in a digital age. Friends, I think we're in a time right now, and I've said this before, I believe you guys are the front lines of this. There's a church renewal movement happening. And I believe that God is using the pandemic. I don't believe he cursed us with it, or that's just not my theology. Rather, this pandemic happened and God's using it to redeem it, to wake us up as the church to what's important, to get back to certain things. And so through some of that pain and suffering, it's been difficult. But I think that we have an opportunity here, and we have to start being critical about how we've done things in the past and how can we do things better for God's glory? How can we continue to reach these young people with the gospel? And so I've said it many times. It feels like the movement of evangelicalism, especially recently in the last number of years, has kind of ruined evangelism. And what I mean by that is evangelism in that word, or evangelical, has been connected to things that aren't really necessarily part of Jesus. And it's convoluted. There's a lot there. I understand that. You can send me an email later about it. But because of that, this next generation is confusing the movement of Jesus with things that really aren't of Jesus. And because of that confusion, they are rejecting Christ. They're leaving the church. And so we know that 1 million+ young people are leaving the church every year. They're just not compelled by the life that they see us living. Now, you guys, though, I believe you guys are living a compelling life. You're out there on the streets, you're suffering you're doing it. And we need to continue to think about, how are we going to share the gospel to this next generation? What is that going to look like in a digital age? And we have to reframe some of these things. We always keep the gospel at a core message, but sometimes about how we share it or how we position it or what that looks like. It's like Paul when, at the Areopagus, when he was like, okay, I noticed that you have a statue to the unknown God. Let me take this moment. Let me frame the gospel within that. That's what we continually need to do to share the gospel. And so today we invited our friend Bobby Lopez from Passionale to come share some thoughts that he has about how do you share the gospel in a digital age. And so, friends, I want us to keep on pressing. If you are waiting for things to go back to how they've always been, I'm here to let you know they're not going to go back. The move is forward, and we got to be brave and courageous to move forward and create a different future, especially for these young people, but with the gospel that's been timeless, with the gospel at the core of it. So, Bobby, man, thanks for being on, brother. So thankful for you, man. Thankful that we're friends and we get to co-labor together. Really quick, Bobby, before you get into your material, can you just share a little bit? Probably, so what, 17 weeks ago, you were on and you led one of these and you were talking about, it was you guys a couple weeks before everybody else figured out about this pandemic. You were already on it. You shut down a couple weeks before everybody else and you went online and you went digital. Share a little bit, give us an update, man. Like what has God been up to since that time? And then go ahead and go into what you want to share with us, man.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm so excited that we have now opened up a second campus for Passionale on the ground. Byron Appen, who's on the call, eating his top ramen in Maryland. He actually came on board with our team, and he already had a small group that we just kind of started working with. So now we have one campus in East LA, one campus in South LA, thanks because we've been meeting everybody through the Fuel networks in LA, and we've been able to really just kind of see things, God moving so much. And so Byron and I met through UYWI and through the networks, and now we partnered together to just make a bigger impact in South LA. To be honest with you, I couldn't do it without him and Natalie. Natalie's his co-director, and she's just this amazing young lady who's come along with them two at the helm. There's just nothing that's impossible. So we're really excited because our dream is to be wherever there's a neighborhood, wherever there's a ghetto, wherever there's a part our kids are struggling, we want to be in those positions. Going into South LA, which is historically, the birthplace of gangster rap, heavily gang infested, heavily struggling with drugs and all these other issues. We just want to be there. And because of the Fuel Network, we've been allowed to connect with people who are in that area and just kind of expand Passionale to be there. So really excited. But on top of that, we've just seen so much stuff. We've learned so much from that time when we jumped right on and we were ready to adapt. And we just came at it with everything we had and was like really excited about how we're going to reach the kids and see, so this is what we always tell everybody. Listen, everybody's worried about getting killed when they go outside by some virus. Everybody's worried because the economy, they might not have money next week. We grew up in that, so we're not worried. We're just living life. Like we literally couldn't go outside when I was younger. Like we grew up in the neighborhood, you know what I'm saying? So this is not anything that like, we're just still kind of, it was easier for us to adapt to the trauma that everybody else is trying to get used to. We grew up in that. So a lot of us were just kind of like, we're figuring out how do we do it. We were excited to get in there and go online. We saw the potential and we learned a lot. I mean, we did. We had a lot of theories that didn't work out. We had a lot of theories that did work out. And things we're still trying to figure out. I feel lost, but I feel like I'm in good company because I feel like everybody's lost right now. And so the way we described it, my team was talking about this the other day and I had to explain to them. There used to be this movie, it still exists, but my favorite movie is called Ricky Bobby Talladega Nights. And there's this part where this guy's praying and he's praying, and I remember the first time I watched it with one of my overly spiritual cousins. And there's this part where the guy's praying and he's praying to baby Jesus. And he's praying to baby Jesus and he says, "Dear baby Jesus, dear 8-pound baby Jesus," like he goes off. My cousin is laughing, but then the old guy on this thing turns around and says, he grew up. My cousin looks at me and says, "Yeah, Jesus grew up." He goes, "You know what's sad?" And I go, "What?" He goes, "If that person always believes, is always focused on baby Jesus, he'll never see the power and potential that Jesus has in his life right now." And I think the church in America is kind of in that spot. As long as we're focused on who we were, we'll never see the power or potential that God has for us right now and what we're able to do and the capabilities because we're still focused on the past. See, the church has never needed, the church is like paralyzed right now. A lot of people are like, let's just wait to see what happens. But it's kind of like a scene later in Ricky Bobby where he's sitting there and he thinks he's paralyzed, but he's not, but he's just thinking it in his head. But he has the potential to walk, but because of his own thoughts and his own thing, he's just not moving forward. I think that's where the church is right now. I think we're scared, and we're not moving forward. I think we're waiting for something to happen and we're paralyzing ourselves. But we need to be more active than ever because the fear of death is more real forever for little kids that we're working with. The people are more isolated than ever. Groups are more divided than ever. America needs us more now than ever. And we can't wait. We can't afford to wait. We feel incapacitated by our inability to resume the operations as usual. But while we're incapacitated, the enemy is not. He's still fighting forward, and he's taking this opportunity while the church waits for everything to resume to keep moving forward. And I'm here to tell you today that I think I'm struggling with that idea of going back to what we had, because what we had wasn't working. I'm gonna be honest with you. Operations as usual in the past were not working before COVID crisis, because every generation that came up, we were losing millions of kids, because churches were shutting down faster than we could plant them. Pastors were being burnt out, depressed, and suicidal at a rate faster than we could ever understand. And so we were like, our organization as a church, like our Blockbuster was like Blockbuster. It was going down, but we kept holding on to the method. And so every time people tell me, I can't wait till we go back to normal, I'm like, why? Because it wasn't working. Why do we want to hold on to what's not working? No, why do we want to keep to something that's so a model? No organization would run around feeling like, man, I can't wait. Basically, we want to go back to losing, because we were losing ground. But this is not an obstacle. What's happening to us is not an obstacle. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to reach kids like never before. Because although the COVID crisis is devastating to America and it's painful, the church in quarantine is an opportunity to reach farther, impact deeper, and change more lives than ever. See, I know that a lot of us are scared because we don't know how to work in this new online field. We don't know how to handle this social media. But you have to understand this. There's opportunities in this obstacle. I know you were raised with CDs and DVDs, and you don't understand DMs. I know that you don't understand the difference between views and reaches, and you don't know how to understand the analytics and all that stuff. I know that. I'm like that too. But we can't just wait to hold on. And when you're scared like that because you don't know about this new stuff, you try to hold on to what was comfortable, which is business as usual, right? But business as usual wasn't working. But thank God, I'm gonna be honest with you, there are a lot of people out there. I thought we were like the forerunners and the guys moving in front, but and I know I'm supposed to talk about what we're doing in Passion, and I will get to that, but there are 3 guys out there that I want to put out there that are actually doing greater things than I've ever seen. There's a thing called TikTok Church. This guy came out, everybody was laughing at him. It's not gonna work, whatever. This guy has 375,000 followers in 1 year in his TikTok church. That's the fastest growing church in America. Outreach Magazine hasn't even asked them any questions yet, but this guy's reaching more people than anybody I've ever seen. He had a 1-minute Bible study on porn and 70,000 people viewed it. Now you might say, well, that's a 1-minute Bible study. What kind of impact he had? Well, he had a lot more than somebody who had a 30-minute Bible study that nobody watched. And because he was able to do, and he was willing to do what nobody had done before, and willing to adapt to this generation rather than complain about it. We're not called to complain about this generation. Oh, their attention span is so small. We're called to transform this generation. And so people out there that are willing to do this, there's another guy named Eduardo Gonzalez Jr. who's on Instagram. He had 70,000, and I want you to understand, these are not followers. These are people, human beings with lives that God wants to reach and change. He hit 70,000 people on Instagram in 1.5 years. And I was reading his stuff. There was a kid from the Netherlands, a kid from a whole different country who said, thank you so much. I needed to hear this today. A young Hispanic in Texas is reaching a kid in Netherlands because although he was afraid, he was more passionate, and he had to move forward through the fear. And so you have a guy like Jacob Coyne. I love this kid. Jacob Coyne's on TikTok, 1.33 million people on one post, and all he did was explain the whole good news. He explained the whole, like, basically he evangelized everybody in one little post. It was a picture that said, it said on there, people who have died to save other people. All the kids were interested. Like, he was going to go through a whole view of all these different people and show a bunch of pictures. Boom, he put on a picture of Passion of Christ. He said, Jesus Christ died for you. And then he went in, and then he just gave the scripture. 1.3 million people saw that. Now you might say, oh, well, what kind of impact could it have? Well, 1.3 million people know the gospel. And if any of those people had never heard the gospel, at that moment they did. And as I looked down, there were atheists who were commenting. There were people from different religions, Muslims. Everybody was commenting on it. Some people were arguing, but they were still listening. And so we have to be aware that this is not an obstacle, what we're going through. This is an opportunity that God wants to use because the church wasn't ready to use it. Like Tommy said, I don't believe God, just my theology, like I agree with him. I don't believe that God sent this virus, but I do believe that God's an opportunist and wants to use this virus to impact the kingdom. And so I think we have to look at it like that too. So here's the deal. Jesus came down to earth, messed up a bunch of religious people in the past, because they were so stuck on sacrificing lambs to get to God. They were so focused on going to the temple to get to God. They were so stuck on the method to get to God that they missed out on the actual getting to God, because they were so married to the method of how they did things. And that's the church in America. We were so married to coming to church every Sunday and doing everything every Sunday, and we had to be at this time, at this place. We were so focused on the method that we might miss out on what God's doing. Because the truth is, whether we say it or not, we've committed idolatry with our Sundays, because some of us are going to Sundays as if we're going to God. And so this is a whole new opportunity. So Jesus, what did he do? He had to redefine church so they could get out of business as usual, because business as usual was killing them. Business as usual was taking away their effectiveness. So this current generation, how do we redefine church? I try not to I'm trying to just kind of talk to you guys, but I kind of wrote some things down. So back in the days when Jesus was here, there was a bunch of people, and it meant what it meant to be productive was to look religious. In other words, the more you looked religious, the more you were like doing your job as a back then a good Hebrew. Jesus came in there, he changed the whole thing. He redefined what productiveness meant. He changed it to like, you got to reach souls, you got to do this, you got to do that. We've got to change what we think of what's productive. Disciples are not just people that are attending to a certain group. We used to measure our success by how many discipling, by how many people showed up at our group. But I'm gonna tell you this right now. I have a view every day on my kids' actual lives, whether they're walking out the fruit. Because as I'm watching them, I'm telling you, they can go 1 hour. You can fake it for 1 hour on Sunday, but at 2 o'clock in the morning on TikTok, you writing the truth. You know what I'm saying? So we're no longer measuring ourselves by this thing that says, are you showing up? Are you checking the box? Now we get to actually see, are they living out the fruits in their lives? And so we're asking our leaders, we need you to go out there and find the stories of change in their TikToks. We want you to be watching their Instagrams. We want you to actually sit there, and I want stories of how these kids are changing. And we know it doesn't happen overnight, so we don't just, hey, give me a story a week. We're like, hey, a month, you know what I'm saying? Like, but we also are looking at, and we're trying to, we have to change what productiveness means and impact too. We're not gathering into one spot at a time. Before we were back, and I'm really stuck on this because I'm really kind of grieved by the church saying, I can't wait till we get back to normal. I'm like, man, you are so blockbuster. You some of you were like moving into like maybe Redbox, but we're in Netflix over here. You know what I'm saying? Like, so impact no longer can be judged by how many people we could pack on on 1 hour a day, 1 day a week. It's now we can reach them at any time in any place. We're now free from that boundary that we had before. And so if we're measuring them, trying to get them all onto like this one live meeting or one things like that, we're cutting ourselves short. Because the truth is, I'm hoping, and I know Tommy's team, they're not just looking at this video, they're looking at the fact that all day, you got to be checking through later, looking at your analytics. And PLA, we started looking at our analytics and seeing how are we reaching them. Because if you look on IG, let me tell you something right now, TikTok and Instagram all have analytics on there. If you do it right, if you switch it to a business mode, and you can see how many kids looked for how long, you can see whether they looked and they pressed to another button. All that stuff is important. I know some of people are like, hey, look, man, I just want to flow with God. I don't want to count numbers. Well, Jesus counted numbers. How do we know there's 5,000 disciples? Because he counted them. You know what I'm saying? He even know how much bread they had left. So they were counting things. So we can't get all religious now. We have to look at our analytics to see our productiveness. Because I'm tired of church saying we did a good job because you're shouting on the corner, yelling at people that they're going to go to hell when you felt good, but you didn't have any impact. So what we do is we look at the analytics. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little preachy, but my apostolic side is coming. I grew up Pentecostal. So yeah, and so we really have to look into the analytics. The other thing that we have to look at is what is redefined is what leadership is. I was on a phone call with Byron the other day. I feel like God was moving in him, God was moving in me, and we talked about the fact that leadership is we can no longer use the word leadership. we have to use the word influencer, because John Maxwell called leadership influence. And then, and so for a long time, we've been throwing around that word influencer as if it's not connecting to what we're doing. But we think right now we're redefining the word leadership. We're asking them not to develop their leadership skills, but their influencer skills. Because the truth is leadership is influence. But the kids, when they hear it, they don't want to be leaders, because to them and their realm and that's a heavy brand. That's almost like a large commitment that they're not ready to make. So we change it to influencer, right? And it's true. And not every influencer is a leader. That's right. Well, I don't know. I kind of disagree. I think every leader is an influencer. They're just not a good influencer. You know what I'm saying? Like I always tell kids, but they should be, right? Exactly. The other thing I want to redefine, and I want to talk to you guys about, like, real quick. I'm looking at my timer, so don't worry, I ain't gonna go over. I have my little timer here. Is to redefine the purpose of church, not the actual purpose of it, but how we do the purpose. We used to call fellowship like we ate chicken after church. We call it friending them, like now, like, hey, you got to friend these kids. You got to text them throughout the day. How you doing? What's up? You've got to message them. These kids are weird because you can't, it's different from my generation. You can't put a lot of pressure on them. So what we realized is you've got to not be needy when you're texting them, wanting them to respond, but just kind of throw it out there and message them every once in a while. We do this thing on Instagram where we call them, or we record messages and just say, hey, just going to let you know I'm praying for you. Things like that. Those are things that are connecting them to us. So we're telling our leaders to be friends with them. Like, we're even looking at changing conferences now, because we're like, to be honest with you, conferences are cool, but no kid wants to sit 8 hours. No human being. I don't like doing it. I have to do it for my job, sitting 8 hours in front of a camera. Like, it's just, so what we're looking at is how do you spread it out through a week, chop it up, get the same message across in a different method. And so, like I said before, we're putting memes, we're putting all this stuff. So we're developing a conference coming up this year, but it's not, I'm calling it conference to articulate it to you, but to them, it's just going to look like a week of something, like a week of how to be a strong leader, a week of how to be, how to walk with Christ, discipleship. So we're trying to change everything. We're not trying to do church online. A lot of people are just trying to like videotape their church and put it online. And that's really, I'm going to be honest with you. And I love that. I know a lot of people are doing that, and that's good. And it's working for some people, but with the younger generation, they don't have that long of attention span. Like, they don't. So we realize they love me and I love them, but they don't want to be staring at me for a half hour teach. So we try to change the whole thing on how we're doing that. Evangelism, we changed it. We realized too that a lot of kids don't want to connect with the organization. They want to connect with the person. And so what we did was we started using our own personal Instagrams instead of using the organization's Instagrams, because people didn't want to, like, so when people get on the phone, kids are going to look at your stuff on your phone. When they get on their phone, they're not looking on there to connect with the organization. They think they want to feel like their friend is talking to them one-on-one. And so we stopped doing like the big old production, and we just started talking into our phones. And that worked, because we got 500,000 views on TikTok off me and my wife talking to our phone, like talking to the phone at first, like back and forth. We have some where we're like acting like we're living life and just talking to them. But man, those views are nothing. It's not just the views. It's that I was getting messages in the middle of the night from kids saying, I just want you to know I was in an abusive relationship, and what you said encouraged me to leave. I just want to let you know that I've never felt anybody love me till I heard your message from a father to a daughter. And I'm like, whoa, 1 minute message. I mean, and so we got to stop looking at it like, how do we do church online? Because online and social media is no longer the side piece, it's the main piece. We used to use it to support church. It is now church. And so we have to stop looking. So that's what we're trying to do. Like, how do we do it that? So we do, of course, we do hybrids where we're out there giving food to the kids. So you'll see us giving food to the kids, and it gives our chance to talk to them. But a lot of our stuff and connection is done online through texting, through the phone, and everything like that. The only one we're really struggling with is worship, and we're trying to figure out how to reveal God online. I think everybody's struggling for that, but I think we're struggling because we still want to do it where we get that emotional high, and it's hard to do that when you're looking at a phone. But you have to have faith that they're going through something different than you're going through. A lot of times we're so used to being in worship, and we raise our hands and everybody raises their hands around us, and we feel like, man, that was an awesome service. But when you're just sitting there, you might not feel that way. but you got to have faith that on the other line, there's a kid who's just struggling with wanting to kill themselves. And you got to have faith that there's a kid that's struggling with their faith. And so I don't think we're struggling with doing worship online. I think we're just struggling with the idea of losing that affirmation we used to, or that feeling we used to get on when we were together. Discipleship, we kind of changing the verbiage to pretty much like building a healthy community. We're trying to figure out, I'll be 100% honest with you. I'm really frustrated because the church keeps falling behind on a lot of things. Jeffree Star, Dulce, Mr. Beast, these are all TikTok influencers and YouTube stars. They are doing discipleship better than us. They're just not discipling people towards God. They're building communities. They're building communities, and people are responding to them, and they're shaping people's thoughts and minds. They are not worship leaders. They are just they are actually just guys who are just doing it for different reasons, for their own personal gain. When we can actually push them, we can go out there like that, and we can actually learn those things and develop how to build a community to pull kids and to change the culture of the kids' mindset. And so one of the things that we started was we were making sure that we did hand symbols. And we were like, hey, warrior, what's up? And we were calling all the kids warriors. We knew when they started calling us warrior back, they were changing their mindset about themselves. And so it happens little by little, but it's happening because we know that we have to do culture online. And so we're changing the culture online, and we're trying to build that community online of a bunch of people. Maybe they don't gather together, but they go life together, and they're fighting the battles and struggles together. I do think this is going to have to happen for a lot of change. I got a couple minutes. What we're realizing and we're talking about right now is that the idea of what planting is, redefining planting. Right now, we plant according to geographical areas. Like I'm gonna plant in LA, I'm gonna plant in I'm gonna plant in Hawaii, I'm gonna plant in North Carolina, whatever it is. And we define it by geographical area because it doesn't work like that on the internet. There is no geographical boundaries. They're stuck together by connectivity, by like, hey, I like biking, or I need a parent, or I want to hear about relationships. And so when you have a leader that comes at him and says, okay, I'm gonna own this space, not this geographical space, but this emotional space that all these kids inhabit. And so what we're trying to figure out is how to get our leaders to own their space. I have one kid, and he don't know, we're probably gonna find out now, but he does biking, and I found out that kids love biking nowadays. So I'm trying to get him to create an Instagram page for bikers where he can engage in conversations with kids on things like that. Because that's what they're gonna connect with. They don't know you. They don't care who you are, especially my kids. They look at me like, where you from? Like, they don't care. What they wanna know is like, they wanna know that you care about the things that they care about. Then they wanna know that you care about them. And then they wanna know why you care about them. And that's the opportunities you need to take. And so, yeah, there's a lot of great things that you can do. The discipling, collaborating. Back in the days, it was like, this is my church, my organization. One thing that we're realizing is we're not the everything for everybody. We're really good at bringing people in, but we have to do the handoff to other organizations that are better in other areas. So like when it comes to reaching a kid, we have this thing called Relationship Class 101. We got a grant. We're paying kids like a certain amount of money to come to it. Kids are coming in that we don't know, from Dallas to Texas to Hawaii to literally, and I'm not even exaggerating on the names. I'm not even making up. Oklahoma, Boston, wherever you think it is, they're coming in. As we're teaching the class for that 1 week, me and my leader, Checha, are developing a relationship with them. And as we're developing that relationship with them, we're also connecting them into Passionale. We're throwing them our Instagram, our TikTok, and everything. And we're still connected to those kids today. So they have an opportunity to get connected to Christ because we connected them in this class that they wanted. The relationship class, it was the biggest need that they had. We knew that kids are struggling. We know that kids are scared because they're looking at life and they want a relationship. They just don't know how to have it. They want a healthy relationship, but they don't know how to have it. And we knew coming from the neighborhood that a healthy relationship will make you or break you. If you're how are you going to serve Jesus and be joyful all the time if you're married to a crackhead? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the things we learned. How are you going to how are you going to walk in joy if everybody around you is toxic? So we were like, how do we meet this need that's inside of them and at the same time give them something that God wants them to have? So we developed these relationship classes, and now it's going to have its own Instagram to connect with kids that are looking for relationship connection, and we're going to pull that into. So we have all this stuff, and I got to be honest with you, we are by no means done with the process. We're going up in August with a bunch of our leaders, and And we're going to talk to them and say, what can we do now? What do we have to do to make you guys influencers, to connect with these kids, to teach them about Christ and develop them? And so I'll leave you guys with this. The church needs to stop crying about the loss of our methods. I'm just being, I don't know, I come from East LA, I'm a Marine, so I'm gonna just give it to you how it is. We just need to stop crying about our loss of methods and get ready to move into what God has prepared for us. We can't keep wandering in the desert, grieving about Moses. Moses is dead. It's time to get out of there, get away from business as usual. We can reach more people than ever, faster and cheaper than ever. No longer does Sammy Rodriguez, Stephen Furtick, and TD Jakes own the spot. Right now, one little guy sitting in his room ready to talk to a kid can connect to them if he's willing to do what it takes and adapt to the situation. It's all fair right now. It doesn't matter how good your production is. They just want to connect with people, and they want to connect with them one-on-one. But we can't wait, because right now, as we're waiting, as we're sitting here mourning over our method that died, there's a little girl in Guatemala who's been raped by her father, who needs somebody to tell her that she has a Jesus in heaven, a father in heaven who loves her. There's a little boy in England who's thinking about killing himself because he's been bullied. And while we're sitting here crying about our not being able to go there on Sunday, we're missing out on the opportunities to reach them, because he ain't going to go to your church on Sunday at 11. He's going to be sitting on the internet at 6 in the morning or 3 in the morning, and he's just going to click on your post. And you might not think you're not doing anything. You might think you're not reaching anybody. But like I always say, when you plant a seed in the ground and you throw dirt over it and you keep watering it, you got to have faith, even when you're staring at dirt, that seed is growing. And one day, as you keep watering in faith, you'll see it poke through, and you'll end up seeing the fruits of what you've done. And right now, I don't even know if we're seeing the fruits. I think we're seeing a little bit, but I think I'm still staring at dirt. I know some of you are frustrated and you're nervous and you're scared because you're thinking it's not working. No, you're staring at dirt. Have enough faith to keep watering. It will poke through and you will see the fruits. So don't give up.
Dude, thanks, Bobby. Hey, I got a question for you, brother. So any thoughts about how do we tell the story of Jesus to this next generation? Like what is that? How does that look like for you? And you kind of mentioned some of it, but I'd love for you to kind of draw it out. Like, it was a 1-minute video on this. It was, you gave us some examples, but like, tell us a little bit more about that. How are you, or how do you think we should reframe, or share the story of Christ to this next generation?
So when my kids, we have to be very careful, because they've been so inundated with people who want to shove religion at them, but not a relationship with God. So we have to earn the right. Young Life talks about earning the right to tell them the gospel. And I believe in that, but I believe that, so we draw them to it. So a lot of what we're doing is, you'll notice that we do a lot of testimonies in Passionale, because we want to spark their interest, so they'll ask the question, or so they'll wonder how to make that, because they all want to change. Let me tell you something. I was in the drugs and all this other bad stuff. That wasn't my dream. That's not where I wanted to stay. I wanted to change. I just didn't know how to do it. So when they see your stories online and they see the changes that other people are making, it sparks their interest. And it's the same thing we use when we go into juvenile hall and we just love on them and we care about them. And then we don't tell them about Jesus. They ask us, like, who are you? What are you about? So what I would always encourage is, don't be so quick to throw the gospel, because the kids have already built a resistance to it. Be quick to develop the relationship, or rather, I don't know if it's really developing a relationship, connect with them online. And then when your time is ready, then you can release like the truth to them as they're ready in the relationship with you. So we've having a lot of one-on-one conversations with that. And I do love that. I was surprised at watching that little 1-minute blurb about like how he did it, but there's other people that are doing it way better than that.
So it's almost like, when you're talking, Bobby, it reminds me of Jesus at the well, with the woman at the well, where he just strikes up this conversation. She starts asking questions, and he's got the answers, right? And so, that's a tried and true thing. But I think what it seems like that's hard for a lot of us is the learning curve to do that in a digital format with ways that this next generation will respond to it. And every generation, there was something like that, right? I mean, a long time ago, it was the radio, and then people started doing radio shows and sharing the gospel over radio. And other times it was, Salvation Army. They had brass bands that would come up with gospel, like music. And they just, to share the gospel, these tenets of the gospel through a brass band singing, hymn-like music. So there's always different iterations of doing that. How have you, what can you share us another story of what that's kind of looked like for you guys as you've engaged? Maybe we put this thing out about relationship, and then somebody asked this question, and then how did that relationship actually continue? Because you talk about DMs, which is direct messages, right?
Yeah.
But can you give us an example of that? Give us a picture of what that would look like.
So, you know what? So I'm really big on like just praying it through. When's the right timing to release the gospel with somebody? So there was one girl who was talking about her relationships, and sometimes you get these messages where a kid is short and sweet. That's just their personality. Everybody has a personality. But sometimes you get these like paragraphs of like, it's like a roll of toilet paper. It just like, stop. And so she started messaging this, and I was reading it. She's talking about like her dad, and she's basically giving me the first part of her testimony. That's what I call it. But she didn't know the second part. So as I'm sitting there and I'm talking to her, all right, she's reading up, and I'm just going back and forth. I'm realizing this girl, I've got to like tell her like where she's hurt, see where she's hurting, and see how. And so we just kind of, I think she was from Fresno, and I was like, hey, can I just tell you something? And I just said, can I tell you how much, like, I know you're looking for this, and I just really connected with her on what she was looking for, because after I read it, I said, but can I tell you that I know that when in my life, and I wasn't trying to like tell her how to live. I just said, in my life, this is how I found. And she had already known my life because she's watching my TikTok and my Instagram, and she's seen me like how I've been changed. And I said, in my life, I gave my life to Christ, and and I laid out the gospel in a way she could understand. And she actually received it. Not only did she receive it, it was so amazing. She's like, I don't know. She's like, this is so awesome. All of a sudden I went from Bobby to pastor. She's like, pastor, I think she, like, I just became her pastor in that second, you know what I'm saying? Like, and she was like, pastor, you don't know, actually, I went to church when I was a little kid, and it's really been on my heart, but I'm so scared to go back to church. And that was it. I told her, no one's going back to church, but you can always go to God. And that was like the moment, but it was really just kind of like an opportunity. I wouldn't advise DMing kids you don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll let them come to me. And just to let you know, my Instagram to build safety is always built. It's always on 2 to 3 other people's phones. So there are no real personal phone calls with our messages with Pastor Bobby. So if you're trying to like message me about throwing my wife a secret birthday party, it ain't gonna happen, because she's gonna read it on my TikTok, because she's on my TikTok on her phone. And so everybody's reading what I'm saying and we have that on all ours. We even have a line that's directly just our own smart line that you can get through GoDaddy, that we use directly to put it out there to anybody so they can text.
That's good, man. Hey, thank you so much, Bobby. Hey, friends, we want to just go into a time of breakouts. And so where we can kind of discuss a little bit about what's been going on. The reasons we want to do the breakout is so that you can just hear from each other, and start going, well, hey, how are you doing this? Or what do you think about this? Or if you're like, one of my questions would be, okay, I think that works. I love all this, and this is really good. We're going to do that. It's in response to the pandemic. How does this change when we get to be back together again? And how do we integrate all this? Because it's not going away. Like, the digital space is not going away, even when we can all get back together again. So then it has to be put into a strategy and a way of engagement that also includes that, what Bobby's talking about, and how do we do that, as well as, the life on life, like we can be together again without killing each other with the virus. And so, share that in your breakout groups. If you're on Facebook, guys, thank you so much for joining us. We know you can't go into the breakouts with us, but thank you guys for hanging on and rocking with us.